everyone. Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, where three writers who always deliver happily ever afters offer questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Roan Parrish.
I'm Zio Axelrod.
And I am Avery Flynn. We have a great show for you this week, and we're super excited because we have the very lusciously locked Gabrielle Miller with us. So if you were listening, at least jump by the YouTube so you can see her super pretty hair.
She's beautiful.
Gabrielle is a Canadian actress in addition to being a hair model. She's not really. But since the start of her career in 1993, she has appeared in hundreds of television films and series episodes. All right, Gabrielle, tell us where everybody is going to know you from and what you are working on now.
Hi, ladies. First of all, thank you so much for having me. You guys are amazing. I had so much fun listening to your podcast. So my name is Gabrielle, and I am an actor. The thing that people probably recognize me most from is a show that I did in Canada for 6 years called Corner Gas, and then we went on to do an animated version and movie, which was really fun. So fun. Right now I am getting through the pandemic and parenting and working on a project with a friend that I'm really excited about, but we're in the midst of trying to get a home for that. So I'll wait on giving you too much info, but when I'm ready, I want to let you guys know because it's pretty exciting.
Please do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will send all of the good vibes for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fingers and toes crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's been a year. I mean, 2020 was like a year. The 2021 hasn't been too far behind, but I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because we're getting to the end of this year, and I'm cautiously optimistic for the next year. I don't know if you guys are feeling the same way.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand how we're already like in fall, considering like 2020 crawled by, and 2021 it was like January, and then all of a sudden we're in the fall, and I am not caught up.
Yeah.
I'm not caught up, damn it. So
it was like March 2020 for a year, and then all
of a sudden that's exactly it. And then we were like, oh good, we're out of March, let's go.
Oh man. So you said that you were parenting also, so do you have 1 kid, 2 kids, 400 kids? What do you have? Okay,
I have a little boy named Tobisi. He's 14. I mean, he's my little boy. He's not so little anymore.
He's lovely.
Yes, he's the best. And then I have lots of nieces and nephews, and I consider myself auntie to all of my friends' children as well. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yay.
It's always good to have a nice auntie in the family. There's always that one aunt, the cool aunt.
Yeah.
That's me. In my family, that's me, by the way. Just
nice.
Okay, well, let's dive into our letter because it's a good one. And we really need our listeners to write in because you guys send us such amazing letters and we love hearing from you. So please do email us, DM us, whatever, however you want to send a carrier pigeon, however you want to reach us, we are all totally open. So this letter is from Jessie, and it says, Dear Romance Writers, I'm a nearly 47-year-old woman who has always been very good with my own company. I'm an introvert who has rarely felt lonely, but that began to change after my divorce in late 2017. At first, it was fine, but almost a year after getting on the apps, I'd only had 6 dates with 4 guys, and other life issues led to constant anxiety. So I took a break, feeling it wasn't a good time to try and date. It's now been almost 3 years exactly since my last date, and since the last time I had sex. I've been lonely a lot in 2021 and have thought about sex so much in the past 3 years that I've basically turned into a teenage boy in a raunchy 80s comedy. I love that.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
I'd like to start trying to date and would love to have sex, but I have several issues. Not only do I not have much experience with dating, until 2018, the only person I dated was my ex-husband, and I didn't date as a teen or in my 20s. But it's still very much a pandemic, and I'm also going through a months-long spell of intense depression and anxiety. Again, I'm working through the mental health stuff with my therapist, but I'm worried I'll never feel comfortable dating if I continue to feel this sad/weird. I also tried in 2018 to have a one-night stand. And while it didn't make me feel guilty or anything like that, I can't trust a stranger enough to let go and enjoy myself because I'm worried they might be dangerous. I don't have close friends nearby to ask for setups, and my family is a no-go in that area. Can I date like this? If so, how do I do it without making me more depressed / anxious? Any advice would be appreciated. I'm tired of doing everything, including sex, alone. This is signed Jesse. Oh, Jesse.
Aw.
First of all, group hug.
Group hugs.
Yeah,
Group hugs,
yes.
Jesse. Wow. You are putting, Jesse, I love you, but you are putting so much pressure on yourself right now. Oh my gosh, I can feel it coming from the letter. And so I guess my first piece of advice would be basically to let out that breath that, like a romance heroine, it feels like you are holding without knowing. Release the breath. And yeah, I feel you as somebody who's also 47. There are a ton of changes going on, even with someone at this point in time in your life. Add in the pandemic, add in the fact that it sounds like feel like you're supposed to be catching up on things, and there's a certain way that you're supposed to be behaving and doing things in the dating world, and they may not be a great fit for you, and that's okay. So I think at a certain point in time, you kind of have to, if you can, let go of the breath and think about what you like rather than what is expected for you to like at this point in time, when it comes to dating, when it comes to one night stands, when it comes to sex, period, and being set up. And I know Roan's got great advice right
Roan
now. I
always
can
has the
already
best
hear
advice.
it about dating yourself. So yes.
Well, I mean, not to sound like a cliche of myself, but yeah, I really identify with this letter as someone who also suffers from depression and anxiety and has also tried to date while in those modes. It was not possible for me. Yeah, it's hard, and it's also like, I think that at the risk of sounding really cheesy, it's also a time when like I just felt very not in my power, and dating when you feel not in your power, for me, feels so shitty. Like, it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel exciting, it doesn't make me titillated to like meet someone new or make a connection. What it makes me feel like is like I need to find someone who happens to like know me better than I know myself, because I'm not trusting myself at that moment. And I don't think that's a good way to go about dating ever. And so if you're just in that period of depression and anxiety, it might not be a good time for you to date. And then it's fine. And then the trick is like to find a way to be okay with that and be like, all right, I'm just taking care of myself for a little while. I'm gonna like nest up and get the fuzzy blankets and watch the movies or read the books that make me feel good and like hibernate for a bit. And that is okay, because you're not giving up. You're just waiting till you cycle back into a place where you feel a little bit more in control and in your own power, in a way that you're then going to want to like go out and meet someone who's going to be attracted to that version of you. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that like I have said on the show before so many times that like dating yourself is a great way to do that when you are not in a place where you can meet someone for whatever reason. And so maybe it's not like curl up in your bed with a book and have that just be the thing. Maybe you say, okay, what is a book that just came out that like I really want to read, but usually I wouldn't treat myself to buying it when it was like a hardcover. Order it for yourself. The day that it comes, make yourself like a beautiful dinner and light some candles and sit there with your book and like be present in that moment of giving yourself this gift of time with yourself that you wouldn't ordinarily give you. And like sit with that and think about, I am having a wonderful time right now. I'm doing something I enjoy. I'm eating something that I love. I'm having a glass of wine or seltzer or whatever the thing is that you really like. And pay attention to how you feel in that moment when you're taking good care of yourself, because that is how you should feel on a good date. And if you don't feel that way with someone else, why are you even doing it? You know, like it's not the right time. So yeah, I feel like sometimes the dating yourself isn't just about like being good to yourself and putting yourself in places to meet other people. It's also about learning what you need to feel like something is going well so that you can compare it to other dates once you start going on them again. And like I was single for a really long time before meeting my current partner. And before I met her, I was like I would go out on these dates with perfectly okay people. Like they didn't suck or anything. I don't have nightmare stories. But at the end of the day, halfway through, I was like, I would be having more fun right now by myself or with my friend or my sister or whoever.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what's the point,
Yeah. Yeah. There was something else that Jesse said about not knowing if somebody was dangerous, which to me seems like this. Okay, you want to get to know somebody before you jump into a romantic or sexual relationship with them. I think that might make Jesse more comfortable. So we've talked about this before about joining groups that share your, about your interests, book clubs, pottery making, cooking classes, whatever it is, so that you meet people who you share these interests with. You strike up a conversation, it might turn into a friendship, it might turn into more, but at least you have like a pool of people that you can like talk to and get to know and see if there's a spark there with them. Because sometimes with the dating apps, not that I've ever been on one, but you hear the stories, like people put their best selves or their idealized self on those apps, the angled shots, the pictures of themselves and like they're, the things that they find most attractive or they think someone's going to find attractive about them on those apps. So you don't get necessarily the real person. But I think being in an interactive class with someone for 6 weeks or something, you get to know more of that person than you would through an app interview. So that might just
I love that, because that's kind of like shaping your whatever your dating experience is, right? What feels good to you. I am not a dater. I've never dated. It doesn't really work for me. I also have anxiety and depression. I was thinking about this today. And when I was younger, I walked around in my life kind of like an open wound and having to put myself out there in positions that didn't make me actually feel comfortable. And I was thinking, I don't know that I'm any less sensitive now, but I take better care of myself. So having just gone through a divorce and the pandemic and all of that, I think being gentle with yourself and spending time kind of thinking about what your ideal situation would look like and what would make you feel most comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And that might not be
and learning who you are. Learning who you are without a partner too, because if you were married
totally
and then you're not, like people change when they're in partnerships. Like, everything changes. So like you guys said, just getting to know yourself, dating yourself, whatever you want to call it, but like being comfortable in your own skin before you let someone else in. That's quite
and some of the most beautiful times in my life has been the in between and the times that felt really, really devastatingly difficult in the beginning, like divorce and all of that. But then actually having the time to just refigure out who I was then, right? Because you're right, you're different after relationships and things change and you change. So
yeah.
Well, and I would say also, Jessie says that, she doesn't really have friends that she can have set her up. She doesn't have family that can set her up, that type of thing. So I almost wonder if instead of dating at this point in time, it might be easier to people, for lack of a better word, to be able to just get out there and depending on where you're from, because like Roan and Zio are both in Philly. I'm in the DC metro area. So we have a lot of stuff, but I grew up in the middle of nowhere and went to college in the middle of nowhere and lived in the middle of nowhere as an adult. Right. I know, we can say, oh, go, join a pottery class, and there may not be that pottery class available. And that's really hard when you're in that type of area. But if there are certain activities where you can people, whether it's a county fair, if you're from a rural area, that was always the big deal. That's what you did, whether it's, stepping out and going to the county fair, whether it is a volunteer opportunity, whether it is going to the grocery store in person instead of Instacart,
No.
I know it sounds horrible, but there are different opportunities and different levels of peopling that you can do to sort of at least start to put yourself out there. And that may be a nice in-between level between not seeing anyone and not hanging out with anybody. And then you go to peopling, and then maybe you go to group friendships and things like that. And then maybe on top of that, you'll find somebody to date. Right.
And you can start virtually. There are virtual clubs. if you're living in an
Right.
area where there aren't a lot of meetups, there are virtual clubs more and more every day, you know.
And so that, yes, exactly, is a great opportunity. And, you know, can you date like this? I think, yes, you absolutely can. The question is, and I think since you're already in therapy, Jesse, it's great for you to sit, and I would hope that you're talking about this with your therapist as well. You know, about what your wants and your needs and how to best meet them at this point in time in your life, in your circumstances that you're in. But you need to, you know, allow yourself the opportunities and allow yourself permission not to feel so pressured, which is easier said than done. It's like telling somebody to relax, you know, it's not helpful at all.
No.
But rather than us telling you that, you need to tell yourself that. You need to give yourself permission to sort of experience what you're going to experience right now and know that it's okay. You don't have to date in a certain way. You don't have to find somebody in 6 months or it's all over. You know, as somebody who's also 47, you know, turning 40 didn't weird me out, but I'm telling you, I'm thinking about 50. So if that is sort of, you know, something that you feel, number one, you're not alone. But number two, again, that is a societal pressure. That time limits, only you can put time limits on yourself. So, you know,
I think that's
allow
lovely.
yourself
Yeah.
that.
Be gentle with yourself. And I apologize. I realize I may have misgendered Jesse. I wasn't, I said she, and I don't know if it's she, he, or they that wrote in. So
Oh, no,
my
she-
apologies.
That
Does
is
say
true. She
woman.
does say
She does say she's
woman.
woman. Yeah.
She did.
woman.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'll add is the piece about, you know, wanting to have sex not by yourself. I think that like what we've been talking about so far is the idea of you meeting people, using people connections to date people, and then the idea would be that you would have sex with whoever you were dating. There are other options though that you could consider if you're interested. I totally understand like not being super into one night stands, especially if you're someone who doesn't really feel relaxed with strangers. The one thing that you could think about is finding someone on the apps that you could have virtual sex with so that they wouldn't be in your space. You wouldn't have to feel threatened by them in any threatened with like violence, or, you know, you could disconnect whenever you wanted, but you could try starting like chat sex with someone, and move to sex on via camera if you want to, or, you know, if that doesn't really interest you, you could think about finding porn that is maybe like something that you haven't tried before and seeing if you want to like delve into that so that it is still by yourself, but it's pushing boundaries in a way that maybe you're more used to having with a partner. You know, one of the things that I think is so common, especially for people who are socialized as women, is that we are not raised to think of having sex with ourselves as being like quote unquote real sex, because there's this idea that in order to enjoy sex, we need like somebody else to bring it out of us magically, and you know, like
the magic peen.
or like give you an orgasm as if it's something that someone else is bestowing upon you,
Right.
like a fairy godmother or something, when actually like you can have incredibly satisfying sex with yourself if what you're doing is finding outside ways to kind of like experiment with yourself and challenge yourself, because then it is not just like the same old thing that you do before you fall asleep, right? But like trying a new sex toy, or watching a scene in a porn, or like reading sexy books, which you know, I might know a person or two who writes those, and like fantasizing through, like place yourself in the role of those characters and then like imagine someone doing these things to you. And then the other option is like, this might not be for you if it's like any stranger at all that you wouldn't feel comfortable with, but like you might feel more comfortable with a sex worker, like someone whose job is completely to be about your pleasure, who, you know, you find through a reliable network, so you don't have to worry that they're going to like rob you or do violence to you. You know, and that's someone who is very comfortable having sex with strangers and can make you feel like they are not a stranger if that's what you tell them you want. And maybe there are things that you'll discover, like watching porn or reading sexy books, and you're like, I would really love to try this, but I actually don't know if I'm going to like it. And so I want to try it with someone who I know this is a one-off encounter. And maybe that would be something that you could look for if you have the money for it, and that is something that appeals to you. And I think like that is a super valid way to explore any preferences or experiment that you might have, and you don't have to give anything in exchange. You can make it 100% about your pleasure. All you have to give is money, and treat someone kindly, obviously, but like you don't have to worry about performing for someone else or satisfying someone
Right.
Well, and if the sex is more about the emotional connection,
the intimacy
that you get with somebody when you're in a relationship, which I think is kind of where I took what Jessie was missing a little bit, was that togetherness sensation, rather than just looking for orgasms, which neither is wrong. Both are valid, both are awesome. And I wish there was a great, easy, 3-step plan for that. I love a 3-step plan. But unfortunately, that is part of taking that 3-step plan of, going outside, peopling, dating, hopefully finding someone, so I think Roan's advice that she gives is a great intermediary, but it may not fit that whole need that Jessie is seeking.
Yeah,
and
totally
that stinks.
depends.
I wish there was,
I
wish there was an easy answer for finding intimacy in the world today, because I think that is really hard. I think
especially
that is really
now.
hard.
Yeah, especially right now. But I think it's wonderful, and I'm so happy and proud of you, Jessie, for being in therapy, because that is such an enormous step to take, and being that self-aware. So kudos to you. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we gave you something that you can use, some good advice, Jessie.
Yes.
So, right
and
back
thank
to
you
us.
for sharing, Jessie. I think that's really beautiful when people are vulnerable and reach out, because we are all in this together, and everybody is facing their own private challenges. So it's nice to create, and what you're doing right now, even by reaching out, is creating a community, right?
Yeah. Oh,
well
absolutely.
Said. Yeah.
It is the virtual peopling. So you were going there.
Yes, thank you so much. That was an awesome letter, and thank you for sending it in. So I have a chat topic for us, if we can segue. This is inspired by an email from Reverend Romance, and also a couple of characters from one of my books, Small Change. So thanks for that. Let's talk about tattoos.
Let's talk
I've
about
got 4.
Oh, you do?
What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm like, all right, spill it.
Yeah, so let's talk about tattoos. And this is something that, not just like the fact of them, but one of the things that is like, tattoos are something that have become more common in the recent years, and also seem to be a big thing in romance novels. So I feel like
hugely,
most people have like real preferences for, I love a tattooed kind of like risque character, or people who aren't into it. But tattoos are also like my book, Small Change. Ginger is a tattoo artist and owns the tattoo shop in Philly. And she basically, like, her idea of tattoos is tattoos are the scars you can choose. So the world chews us up,
that's
spits
beautiful.
us out. Thank you. Yeah. And like, there are lots of scars that we don't get to choose, that just happen to us, or that we're involved in. But a tattoo is something that, like, for some people it's just beautiful decorative art, and that's cool too. But for a lot of people, it's something that's really meaningful, a way to reclaim and mark your body in a way that you choose. And so, especially after this letter talking about big things like a divorce and re-entering the dating pool, anything like that. I would be so curious to hear all of your thoughts about this topic for yourself or in fiction.
I mean, there's such a strong connotation, especially in romance novels, and I'm generalizing, of course, because there are exceptions, but where tattoos equals some sort of lifestyle or some sort of personality, or some sort of, like, it's like a personality trait, especially with male characters. It's like, he's got a tattoo, and there's just like that.
I think it gets to be shorthand for alpha hero.
Alpha
I
hero,
think is
bad
what ends up
boy,
happening.
like
Yeah,
something. Yeah, which drives me nuts.
a little nuts. Yeah,
Because I do think
yeah,
that a lot of people get tattoos to tell the story of their life, right?
right.
To like you said, mark special occasions, or I had a niece who was like, as soon as she turned 18, she wanted to get a tattoo. Like she was telling us like 3 years before, I'm getting a tattoo when I turn 18. And it was like, you know what I mean? And like my dad was like, why is she doing that to her body? And I'm like, well, I've got 4, but
Yeah.
but it was like his idea of a person with a tattoo was so set in this place that was bad, so
In the boomer place. Yeah.
right. Yeah, total
Very
boomer
much. Very much. Well, it's self-expression, right?
place.
And so it changes. And what's acceptable changes and what it means changes. And so, like everything else, I think tattoos a lot of times tell not just about us as individuals who get them, but also talk a lot about where we are as a society and what we find acceptable and what forms of expression we allow. I hate to put it, allow sounds weird, but I don't know a better phrase for it at this point in time. But and you look at the level of artistry that there is in tattoos now. I think that has changed as they have become more socially acceptable. There is a show, sorry, I'm mad at the streaming channel that it's on right now. But so I won't say it, but they have a really interesting concept, which is they have somebody who has a tattoo that they dislike intensely, and they go with their friend, and their friend picks what the replacement cover-up tattoo is.
I saw this too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's actually, a very interesting show. It's really fun, but it also, so they're talking about, why the person gets the tattoo, what's the meaning behind it. And then that symbol, what that is, it changes. And I think that happens to us sometimes too. It's not always a tattoo. There are things that I think happen to us in life, or that we have, or that we carry with us, and their meaning changes, right?
Yeah.
As we grow older, relationships fall away, whatever it is. But one of the episodes that I watched, the tattoo that was being changed was the dude had gotten a matching tattoo with his husband, now ex-husband. So he was covering that up. So again, we have these things that are symbols, and they have deep meaning for us, or they might just be on there because we're farting around and we said, you know what, SpongeBob, I want to get SpongeBob tattoo all the way across my back,
or the
whole
tramp
thing,
stamps,
right? We also make bad decisions, and that can be part of it too.
That tattoo?
You've never seen my back, Roan. You don't know.
Wait, I'm trying
I
to remember.
remember being in Mexico many, many years ago. I was like, I think in my early 20s, and I met this lovely couple, and the young woman was, I think, like 18 or 19, and she had a huge turtle or tortoise across her belly. And she was just tiny little girl. And I thought, oh, gee, bodies changed. And what a place
They
for
do.
it. Anyway, yeah.
My turtle is fine. No. Yeah. Well, and they come in and out of fashion. They're saying, that the lower back tattoos, tramp stamps.
The tramp stamps, yeah, they're coming back. The thing I think I really love, or I don't even know if it's a recent development, it feels recent, is tattoo artists who cover up scars, like surgery scars. There's one, I saw a beautiful photo the other day of a woman who had a mastectomy, and she got this like roses, and it was just gorgeous, and it was like turning her trauma into beauty kind of thing. And I just think that's amazing use of that art form.
Yeah, that is really attractive to me, like using tattoo as telling stories or things that are so personal. I relate and understand that. I also think that it's just beautiful, like it's art and it's gorgeous. I don't have any. I change my mind so much about things that I was always scared that if I chose something, then I might think, oh, I wish I didn't choose that,
Yeah, that was my issue. I wanted one for years, and then I discovered micro tattoos, and I thought, it doesn't have to be, they're just tiny. Like I can't really see it, but I have like 3, like an ellipsis on one hand. Yes. I have Norwegian word for now on
Oh,
my
I
other
love
hand.
this.
So like micro ones, the biggest one I have, I
Mhm.
think is maybe 4 inches. It's just like an abstract dragonfly. So I was like, oh, if I can get something tiny and like that people won't see right away, then cool, I'll do that. So I have like 4 of them now. So it's like,
Oh,
that's a
I
pretty
love
one.
that. I want to look
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's some really beautiful ones. Like I've seen birds, like my niece got black birds flying up the back of her neck, just little black outlines of birds, really pretty.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all kinds of different styles. People get tribal tattoos, but then there's a lot of like controversy around that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And doing all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the oldest Flynn kid, she's about to turn 19. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy because somebody's home on the bus. Of course, the timing is perfect. And so she's 19 now. She really wants to get a tattoo. So I told her I would go get another tattoo with her. So
Oh, that's great.
So
Awesome.
that again would be very fun. Her dad would be, yeah. I don't think my husband would be particularly thrilled by this, but it's not his body, so
You know what you're gonna get,
on
Avery?
that line. Yeah. I think that is interesting though. But I mean, I got my first tattoo in college, and my parents were just, oh my God. My stepdad, who is a lover of puns, sent me tattoo related pun stuff and magazines for like years. Like he thought it was the funniest thing. So yeah. But anyways, go ahead so I can put my mic on mute.
Oh no, you're fine. Just that idea of like, I feel like so often I hear people who are like, oh, I really kind of want a tattoo, but I worry that I would like not, I would either change my mind or sort of like wish that I'd gotten something else. And I feel like unless it is like a SpongeBob SquarePants kind of situation, no offense to anyone who has SpongeBob tattoo, I feel like the people who I've known who have had that and then have gone ahead and gotten something anyway, if it was meaningful to them, like it was around and it marked an occasion or it reminded them of someone that they loved in whatever capacity, I found that people don't regret those. Like even if stylistically they move past it a bit and they're like, it's 5 years later, maybe I wouldn't have chosen that exact placement or style. It's still this thing where like every time they look at it, it is this reminder of a person or an activity or a milestone that I think it's like looking at an old picture of yourself and being like, okay, my hair was weird then, but that was such an amazing day. And
Yeah.
I find that really beautiful that like there's something about choosing permanence, that you're making a promise to your future self, like no matter what aesthetically changes in my life, I won't regret making a big choice. And I think that's so beautiful. Like there's something to me about that is sort of like, it's like trusting yourself enough in this moment to bet your future happiness on how much you like something in the moment. And I find that like titillating somehow.
I just
Yeah,
hope
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I just hope that with the proliferation of tattoos among the general populace, because it's always been the like young people or like bikers or whatever it is, the connotations that we've had for tattoos, like people who were on the fringes of society. Now that it's just like hair color, like all of a sudden you have 50, 60, 70-year-olds dyeing their hair purple, which I think is fantastic. But like 10 years ago, they would have been like laughed at or whatever. But now that's like a thing. Everyone's dyeing their hair, everyone's getting tattoos. And I love that this medium of self-expression is becoming more and more accepted, because what still happens is that people have to cover them up when they go to work in like a quote unquote corporate environment. And I want to see that go away. That's like the last.
Yes, that's bananas to me.
It is. I don't understand it.
Get rid of that.
Like,
yeah.
It's like if you have, purple hair and a tattoo or a piercing or whatever it is, then you are not fit to work in this environment. And I think that's the most ridiculous thing.
Well,
policing people's bodies and
Yeah.
choices and style and whatever is not okay, man. We need to get over doing stuff like that.
Well, that it also, I mean, it goes into, it is, I think the proliferation of like body modification, tattoos, piercings, natural hair colors, all of that stuff, you can look at it from a, space perspective. and look at that as a reaction to all of the body judgment that we've had, and not just body judgment, but also what your body says about who you are as a person, right? So it is a way to, if the, the negative connotations that come with things, basically, and you still hear it a lot with like fat phobia and things like that, where people are like, well, that person is unhealthy. If they would just lose 20 pounds, they would be healthy. And you're like, oh my God. It is that I think you can look at it as a backlash to all of that horrible bullshit that we've dealt with for God knows how long. Is it sort of it's like reclaiming the word bitch, it is, you're coming back for it and saying, no, this is what this is now.
Well, this whole like false notion of normalcy that we've been holding on to for centuries, or not even centuries, like a century, because we have way more self-expression before our modern age than we do now, which is a kind of a bizarre thing to think about.
Which always shocks people.
Yeah, it does. Like you look at
body modifications that
jewelry,
people have done through history. Yeah.
Clothing, jewelry, hair, all that stuff somehow
sexuality,
became
everything.
Everything became like a binary in the last century or so, where like men do this and only men do this and women do that, and it's like, if the closer we get to letting all that go, I think the happier as a species we will be. So I'm all for it. Get all
and
the
damn it,
tattoos
we
you
need
want.
a little joy in our lives.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And speaking of joy, I'm going to use that as my transition. I have something for you guys that may bring you a little joy, and that is the Guilty Pleasures game show. It is a podcast. It's part of the Frolic Podcast Network, and it sounds super fun. Just like the 90s, guilt-free pleasure is coming back. I am all for this. On this show, authors and co-hosts Laura Lovely and Lindsay Emery quiz your favorite authors, podcasters, and cool creatives about all the things they love, and no one feels bad about any of it. Sounds like our kind of thing.
Yeah.
Come find your next guilty pleasure and the people who will celebrate it with you. You can find this fast and fun show at your favorite podcast app or at guiltypleasuresgameshow.com.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah. I am all for that. Although I don't think there are guilty pleasures. I think they're just pleasures.
Yeah. I don't believe in guilty and pleasure at the same time.
Yeah. Don't judge my chocolate covered cherries.
No.
They're for me. So yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, I need to go have some candy corn now because I have some left over from Halloween. Anyway, thank you so much, Gabe, for being here with us today. Hopefully you had a good time. We loved having you.
Thank you for having me. You women are brilliant. I really appreciate.
Thank you. Tell us again where people can find you online. I know you were on Twitter because I stalk her.
Oh yes, I am on Twitter. I've taken like a little hiatus from posting, but on Twitter I'm at Miller Gabrielle, and on Instagram I'm at gmiller1.
gmiller1.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yay.
Well,
we
thank
love
you
it.
again.
Thank you so much.
And listeners, thank you for hanging out with us for another episode of Dear Romance Writer. You have to remember to send us your questions. We can't wait to hear from you and give you some of our questionable advice. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcast.